Pfizer-BioNTech and Moderna are using mRNA vaccines. The classical variation of vaccines is when we look at the inactivated vaccines. And inactivated vaccines use the virus itself, a weakened or deactivated version of it that is non-threatening, and thus produce the bodily response. The Chinese company Sinovac is currently in the final stages with their inactivated vaccine in several jurisdictions. UAE, for example, has already approved it. The effectiveness, however, has been shown to be a bit lower, with only 79 to 86%, which is not that much if you compare it to Pfizer-BioNTech and Moderna, as we'll see in a second. So it's not as high as for other vaccines.
Another type of vaccines is a protein subunit vaccine, and these use the spike proteins as an antigen. Now, a major disadvantage of protein vaccines is that the immune system is less likely to recognize and attack the protein antigen as opposed to a full-stack, real version 100% virus. And this means that the body will create a weak immune response. Now, to counter that, oftentimes chemical agents called adjuvants are added, and depending on application, these can increase or prolong antibody production and help with the activation of so-called T cells. And similarly, actually, the mRNA vaccine also requires a second dose to be injected after some time so that the immune response can be boosted.
Another type of vaccine is the viral vector vaccines. They are using so-called adenoviruses, which are harmless host viruses, in order to transport the virus itself, or not the virus itself, but the virus mRNA into the body cell. In theory, a vector can be used to deliver the code of various antigens at once, which might prove very beneficial in the future. There's two examples currently that are quite prominent, which is the one that is being developed by Oxford AstraZeneca, which can be stored at regular fridge temperature, a major advantage against mRNA vaccines, or at least the one from Pfizer-BioNTech. And the effectiveness of it is a bit reduced to 62 to 90%. AstraZeneca, however, has said it will produce 700 million doses by the end of the first quarter of 2021 already. Another one, and actually the first one that was approved worldwide, is the Russian Gamaleya Sputnik 5. The Russia's version of a COVID vaccine also works based on the viral vector and has shown a reported 92% effectiveness in studies. Its advantage is that it can also be stored at regular fridge temperature, which has major advantages regarding logistics and cost savings.
Now, another type of vaccine that we want to showcase today is a so-called DNA vaccine. And as the name might suggest, it is very similar to an RNA vaccine because both DNA and RNA are nucleic acids. And so they contain DNA codes for which, or it contains DNA, basically genetic information. And this means the cell hosts can code for proteins of the pathogen. Now, the only difference between a DNA and a RNA vaccine is that the genetic code from an RNA vaccine enters the cell, but not the nucleus, whereas genetic code from a DNA vaccine enters the cell nucleus. And we are not so sure about this, but potentially, if something were to go wrong, it could impact the DNA of a cell. But again, we have so far not tested DNA vaccines, so this is a big potential, but as we know, they share all the advantages that RNA vaccines also have.